Many of the teams on the grid opting to make few or no adjustments to their machines, as the flash floods were predicted to give way to drying conditions within the early laps of the race. Nonetheless, it was under wet race conditions that the Suzuka 8 Hours would finally get underway. The traditional Le Mans-style start would decide who would take the whole shot in Suzuka. A poor start from both pole sitters Yoshimura Suzuki and also for the TSR Honda. And it was the Suzuki machine of Team Kageyama who led into the first turn from 6th on the grid. The Monster Energy Yamaha tucked in behind. Around turn 2, the number 104 Honda of Toho Racing made an impressive move for second from back in 9th on the grid. And the number 34 took advantage of a gap on the inside to come through for third there as well. A first change of race leader with the number 104 taking the lead. Team Kageyama slipping back 2 slots from their early position. And the Yoshimura Suzuki had quickly recovered to second after its poor start. By the end of lap 1, Kazuki Akiyoshi on the FCC TSR Honda was the form rider, picking his way through to second after a poor start. Diving down the inside of turn 16 and making the switch back on the Casio triangle to take the place from Takuya Suda. And it wasn't long before he was through into the lead. Another bold move given the conditions, charging through the S's early on lap 2. The number 12 legend of Yoshimura Suzuki had made excellent progress in the early part of the race, moving up from its grid slot of 10th and in the hands of 2009 8 Hours winner Nobatsu Aoki, clawing its way into the battle for third. Tucking right in, coming off spoon to get onto the back of his rival, Aoki prepared a lunge into the famous 130R, turn 15. Right alongside the 2 Japanese riders, applying the brakes at exactly the same moment, but Aoki was offline, ran wide, and one of the most exciting turns in the world had already claimed its first victim. The former MotoGP rider walked away, but as his crew watched on, it was apparent that their race was over. Kevin Schwantz would not even get to sit on the bike in the race.
Well, we cannot pick up the bike, you know. There's a section that the record, you know, cannot go during the race, you know. It was on the back straight or something. Then the record could, you know, pick the bike up and bring it back here so we can fix it. But we just don't. I don't have any, chance so far.
The FCC TSR Honda was lapping 2 seconds per lap faster than their rivals. And after half an hour on the gradually drying circuit, Akiyoshi held a 30-second lead. Not quite enough to have a pit stop's advantage, so Jonathan Ray would have to work his way through the pack when the team came in for their first relay. Their entry into boxes would allow the 634 of Musashi RT Hark Pro to take a provisional lead and spark a chain of stops, all just before the hour mark of the race. Takumi Takahashi would be into the pits not long after for his first fuel stop, but in the meanwhile he'd gained track position for the team. Reigning world champion Surt exited the pits behind the number 11 TSR Honda, but already a lap behind. Meanwhile, pushing through the traffic, making laps of some of the slower members of the Elite 70 in the race, the number 634 headed back towards the grandstand section and to its stop. Yoshimura Suzuki Shell Advance were into the pits for their first rider change. Takuya Suda making way for Josh Waters after a successful first stint. The Australian would take to the track in third, leapfrogging Team Kageyama in the pit stop phase. Meanwhile, down the order, Team Flembo had dropped 10 places from their starting position of 37th. We came in, changed to slicks, and went on a dry setup. So we've changed from wet to dry, that's it.
Yeah, so Roman was on the rain tires. We changed to slicks, and I had the first few laps where I have to go slowly, but then it goes dry fast, and I can go quicker lap times and follow a little bit Kagayama, but just one lap. And then, yeah, it was dry, and I do the first stand. It was okay, and then I come in. It was a little bit raining. I stayed one lap longer out, so we come in, changed again to slick, but then we get the heavy rain and we changed to rain tires, and now Saiger is out, and I think it was a good stop. Was on the right time.
The number 07 Monster Energy Yamaha was up to 5th, having taken advantage of the misfortune of other teams to move up 2 places. Brock Parks had ridden the first stint for the team, and despite remaining on the lead lap, he found the pace up front just a little too sharp.
It's difficult conditions. I didn't really do much in the rain condition, and I found the bike quite difficult in the rain, and we struggled with rear grip. I had no rear grip, so I lost quite a bit of time in the first stint. I had a good start, but just couldn't go with the front guys, and had a few dramas with the bike, but we're not sure what it was. It stopped, and I lost a lot of time in 2 laps. So now it's drying, so hopefully we can try and make some time up. And I think we're in the battle between 3 and 6 at the moment.
After 2 hours, the top 12 outfits were separated by just a lap. 2 Honda machines heading the 5 teams on the lead lap, with Kawasaki's Team Green only down in 6th. The heavy rain returned to Suzuka at the 2-hour mark, and several teams took advantage to make swift progress. Musashi RT Hark Pro, by contrast, chose caution, slipping back to 3rd position as Team Green came through at 1:30R. The FCC TSR Honda still led the race, but would now expect its 43-second lead to come under threat. The Kawasaki team's wet weather pace, meanwhile, was starting to unravel with a series of errors. Teams took the rain as an invitation to box and an opportunity to change to the wet tyres that would better help them negotiate the track. Jonathan Ray was in for the race-leading FCC TSR Honda. The 39-year-old Superbike veteran Kazuki Akiyoshi back on board. More drama for Kazuki Watanabe of Team Green, this time falling on the circuit from 2nd. The number 87 coming around turn 11 at the hairpin, and the back end simply giving it up. We couldn't find the problem or fix everything, but almost, so it's running almost fixed. A fall for Kensuke Mori was the next main drama of the race, and this time the incident brought out a safety car. Kazuki Akiyoshi was still the leader, but with a vastly reduced margin. Mori made his way back to the pits, missing large chunks of his machine, and would drop back from 53rd position to 66th and 18 laps down. His biggest influence on the race would be the prompting of the safety car that would create another all-out sprint. Thankfully for all of the teams, while the safety car was out, the rain began to slow, and by the time the riders would eventually pin their throttles again, the sun was beginning to return to Suzuka. No comfort for Team Green, who by the 3-hour mark were suffering in 25th and 5 laps down on the leader. After a solid start to the race by Owen Nigon, and having moved up to 11th at the end of the 2nd hour, the Suzuki Endurance Racing team were running highest of the championship regulars. Damien Cudlin was at the handlebars for them after joining the team as the replacement for injured Frenchman Vincent Philippe. 3 laps down on the leader, Surt's focus would seemingly change from targeting a win to banking valuable race points. The Australian rode 10th for them, just a position above fellow championship regulars Yacht. They are difficult conditions. The track is drying, we've had storms, loads is going on, and it's true that this race is really going to the finish. I think we'll have plenty of surprises before the end. We're being smart, trying to calm down the matter. We absolutely must conserve our high position. After that, we'll see. After the disappointment in Bol d'Or, there were more technical problems for Honda in Suzuka. The British-based team had been running at 9th and only a lap behind the leader when the issues began. But a problem in the third hour of the race forced them back to the pits from 9th. Unlike in the Bol d'Or, no mid-race points are awarded at the Suzuka 8 Hours, so if Honda were to claim anything for their efforts, their riders would have to fight from the back. Because after spending 20 minutes halted in the box, Kenny Ferret would only re-emerge onto the circuit down in 61st, 13 laps down. Over that 30-minute period, Honda's race had been ruined. Ferret would remain 13 laps back from the race leader for the next hour, but with a similar pace to the front runners, quickly began to dispatch back markers. Having come across Team Green in the course of their recovery, the two would begin to cut through the field together. The Kawasaki riders still 5 laps back from the leader after their incidents, but ahead of Honda in race time. By the half-race distance, Ferret ran as high as 51st before handing over the bike for its next stint.
Yeah, just had some kind of electrical problem, so they just changed a lot of items. It's obviously cured it, but we don't know which one caused the problem at the moment.
After rain-related dramas for their rivals, Team Kageyama had been able to move up into second position behind FCC TSR Honda. They would lose the place after the pit stops, with Musashi Hark Pro and Yoshimura Suzuki coming through. Switzerland's Moto2 star Dominique Agerter, winner of the last race in his regular category, would be next up for the team. The track still visibly damp offline, but with no rain for the rest of the race, the pace would gradually hot up. Erwan Nigon would return to the track next for cert, with Damien Cudlin making way. They remained in 9th position, with Yacht dropping back to 11th and slipping gradually further in arrears. Cudlin, meanwhile, working back through the garage after his first stint on the machine. Hard work for all of the riders in tough conditions on the circuit. And time to cool off for the Australian before getting back on board later in the race.
It's pretty hard physically. I think the biggest thing I feel when I'm on the bike is just a lack of air, you know, like I'm trying to breathe in as much oxygen as I can, but I can't seem to get enough, you know. Even the air that you're breathing in is really hot, so yeah, physically it's a lot tougher than you'd find in Europe or whatever. So even though it's 8 hours, it's kind of it's every bit as hard as a 24-hour, to be honest. Yeah, physically.
We're looking at temperatures at the moment around 37, 38. So we measure their temperature every time they go off the bike, and we try and bring it down. If it's, I think we've had 1 or 2 over 39, but normally it's less than that. And they can lose anything up from 1.5 to 2 kilograms, and that's basically fluid. We monitor what they take in and what they get out during the before and after stints. So he has to drink 2 of these when he gets off the bike in order to get his weight back up and make sure he stays hydrated. He loses over 2% of his body weight, which could be critical, but he has 200 millilitres in his leathers, which he drinks.
If the Musashi RT Hark Pro was starting to feel comfortable in its newly inherited lead, it wasn't going to have much time to exercise it. A multi-machine pile-up would prompt yet another safety car just an hour from the end of the race. When the race resumed, it was the number 634 that sat at the head of the pack, streaming back down towards 130R. The Musashi RT Hark Pro preparing for its final stop, with Takumi Takahashi taking over from Michael van der Mark. A Japanese rider would seemingly have the honour of bringing home the winning Japanese machine. The first stint this morning we had rainy conditions and the TSR took advantage from us. But we kept our pace and now it's a good result for us. So if we keep this pace up, we will win.
But
there was one final surprise in the race. A three-rider pile-up through the S's that would bring out one last safety car. One of the outfits involved sat in the top 10 at the time of the crash, the EVA RT Synergy Trickstar dropping back. It was nonetheless disappointment for some of the lower order riders as well. After the safety car came in, we tried another quick lap, and I arrived in the slow section and lost control straight away. I think there was oil on the track, and I couldn't do anything. Behind me there were 2 or 3 other bikes who also fell. I couldn't have done any more. I brought the bike back as quickly as I could. The mechanics fixed it up as best as they could, and we only lost 3 laps. So I'm sorry for what happened, but well done to our mechanics. Under safety car conditions and with only 20 minutes of racing still to go, Musashi RT Hark Pro and Yoshimura Suzuki were packed together on the same lap at the front of the pack. As the safety car peeled away with only 20 minutes remaining, the race was underway again. A buffer of several back markers between leaders Musashi RT Hark Pro and their closest on-track rivals Yoshimura Suzuki Shell Advance. But with the 2 on the same lap and thanks in part to the safety car, the local fans were guaranteed a grandstand finish. Josh Waters would be the rider to bring it home for the Yoshimura Suzuki, and he was giving it everything to get past back markers and haul himself back into contention for the win. He had been the slowest of his teammates in qualifying, though. Musashi RT Hark Pro had been given such a commanding advantage thanks in large part to the efforts of Michael van der Mark, who'd set a series of fastest laps that reflected his efforts in qualifying. But he could only watch on now, as the fate of the race was out of his hands. Nervous moments as the Honda held on in the closing stages. Only mechanical dramas could halt it now. And out of the final turn in Suzuka to raise the roof, Takumi Takahashi would round the final turns to win for Honda and Japan. A great race from all of the Musashi Hark Pro riders, knowing exactly when the right moments were to push. They couldn't take pole position, didn't even have the best start, and looked like they were going to have to settle for second. But when the FCC TSR Honda pushed just that little bit too hard, the win was there for the taking. And with Michael van der Mark in particular setting a series of hot laps in the closing hours, they did the work to seal the win. Several solid results for the championship regulars included an 8th place for Cert.
C'est pas
It's not a brilliant position, but considering what has happened this week, I'm very happy. Moreover, it helps us to get back some points in the championship. It's true that at Bol d'Or we didn't get much, but this is a good start. Then we've got Germany, where we'll do even better, and then Le Mans, and at Le Mans we'll win. There were also scenes of celebration at GMT 94 as they took the lead of the championship.
Very, very strange feeling. You know, my best place is 3. We finished already 5, 5 and 7. The first time we were 9, and I'm really happy, because the race was so hard. The start was a nightmare. 3 hours, we didn't understand nothing, and the 5 last hours was really good.
Musashi RT Hark Pro took a second consecutive win at the Suzuka 8 Hours, but in terms of championship results, the most relevant teams were those in the pack from 8th, led by Sert. By finishing second of the permanent teams, GMT 94 took the lead of the championship, but with SRC Kawasaki only 7 points behind, despite missing the 8 Hours of Suzuka. Mathieu Lagrive is the man to watch in the Riders' Championship as he moves 2 points above his SRC Kawasaki teammates by appearing in Suzuka, but it's GMT's riders who lead the standings. Despite the confidence of the Endurance World Championship regulars coming into the race, wet conditions played into the hands of the Japanese outfits who took the top 3 steps on the podium. In the final reckoning, the top 4 were separated by just a lap, a proximity accentuated by safety cars that regularly punctuated the race. But after 7 hours of competition, and with less than a minute between the top 2, this was a race to remember.